This episode is brought to you by the members of the You Run Podcast Network, the Paranormal Misfits Podcast, the Horror Friendly Podcast, the Girl and the Gay Podcast, Video Tasties, Pop Culture Reflections Podcast, the Ghoulish Gallery, You Gonna Eat That Crust Podcast, Voices from the Mausoleum, the Dewey Podmonster Podcast, the Aardvark and the Magic Moshi Do Red Dwarf, and Movies for Days. All available at yourunpodcast.com.
Hi, Heather.
Hi.
Let's kick this off with a quote, shall we?
Okay.
I have received your letter of the 7th of May 1947 referring to information relative to an individual who you believe to be the identity of the killer of Elizabeth Short, also known as the Black Dahlia. As the investigation is a matter being conducted by the local police department in Los Angeles, California, I am taking the liberty of referring a copy of your letter to that organization. Your courtesy and interest in communicating with the Bureau is appreciated. Yours sincerely, John Edgar Hoover.
What the fuck? Why?
Because he was the head of the FBI when this case happened.
That really sucks.
Yeah, this episode's going deep.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the You Run Podcast True Crime, the only true crime podcast completely run and controlled by all of you, our listeners and our viewers. My name is Scott.
And I'm Heather.
We're your hosts twice a month as we take you through whatever case you've chosen for us to do on our Instagram polls. Unlike other true crime podcasts, we don't do this. And then he entered the room and he came closer to her and he pulled the knife. You don't get that here. We don't do that here.
I thought we were fixing to be like, and he came in with 2 large sausage pizzas, and I was like, what is this?
We don't do that. We bring you the facts of the case in a really easy to digest way. We also share our thoughts and opinions as we go through. This is an interactive show, which for this case, all of the interaction is on part 2, but that's neither here nor there. It's an interactive show. Send us an email, yourunpodcast@gmail.com, with your thoughts on any true crime case or anything you want, and we'll read them on the air. Or send us an audio message by dropping us a voice note DM on Instagram or X. They'll be played on the air, so you can get involved in the show that way. Also, super important, if you are watching us on Rumble on early release, leave us a like. Leave us a follow, because we're growing on Rumble rapidly and it's really cool. And I'm pleased with that. So hello, everyone in Rumble world. I don't know what we call it. Rumble land.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah.
I don't know either.
If you are listening to us on any podcast platform, leave us a 5-star review. That really helps us reach new audiences. And if you want to support us in a financial way, you can do that by going to yourunpodcast.com, going to our shop and buying a t-shirt with Heather's face on it.
Like, look at my face now. But like, really, I look like the little boy who could, because I cut all my hair off. And so basically, I still got to send you some photos so we can do some mock-ups of some different t-shirts with different looks.
Yeah. And you can also go and get our other selection of clothing there, like our Killer Specs ones, our You Run Podcast ones, True Crime Expert, True Crime with a Splash of Wine. Like, we've got it all. So go and have a look.
Hey, you want to see my shirt? Hold on a second. I'm interrupting the podcast. It says always pissed with a possum. Sorry. I hope that doesn't screw the recording. I had to wear it because it's my mood.
Yeah, I like it. So let's get into this. So on the morning of the 15th of January, 1947, a mother taking her child for a walk in Los Angeles stumbled across a gruesome sight, the body of a woman cut clean in half. The young woman was identified as Elizabeth Short, and it wasn't long until the press latched on to her black wardrobe and would dub her the Black Dahlia.
decades, the press, the public, and various law enforcement agencies across the United States have been trying to solve the case of Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia. Little is known about Short's personal life or the events that led to her death. All we do know is that she was an aspiring actress who moved to LA to make herself big in Hollywood. On the 15th of January, her body was discovered in images that are far too graphic to show here. She had been horribly mutilated and tortured for days. The images were so shocking that the local press added a blanket before taking more pictures. There were even confession letters sent to the press along with her personal effects. Today, with your help and assistance and the details from the FBI files, we are going to look at this case in detail and who knows, maybe bring a close to the case of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia.
Sad.
It's like, it is sad because it's unsolved. It's sad because it's a human life. And it's sad because, yeah, it just, it's a person, and you have to look at that at the end of the day. We do this true crime stuff, and I don't think that people really humanize these humans as much as you should, because she was a person, and she was young, 22 years old. I think 22. Yeah. She whole life ahead of her, and it's insane.
Yeah, it's a really sad case, and we're gonna talk about it. And I think the best thing to do is understand more about her, so we can understand more about the circumstance she was in, and then try and work out who actually done this to her. So Elizabeth was born on the 29th of July 1924 in Boston, Massachusetts. She was the third of 5 siblings. There's not much known about her childhood. Records in the 1920s were not the best. We know that the family moved to Portland, Maine in 1927. They settled in Medford, Massachusetts. So they moved around a bit. Now, Elizabeth's dad was a sailor, and he was in the United States Navy, and he retired. And when he retired, he had a business designing miniature golf courses. Now, in 1929, the stock market crashed. And in 1930, her father's car was found abandoned on Charlestown Bridge, and it was assumed he'd thrown himself into the river. Assumed. We're coming back to that in a bit. After her father's death, her mother worked as a bookkeeper to provide the family with enough money to get by. Elizabeth had lots of medical bills. She had issues with severe asthma and had lung surgery at age 15. And it was doctors that suggested a milder climate would help her recover. So for the next 3 years, she'd spend all of the summers in Miami, Florida with friends. And she'd eventually drop out of high school in her sophomore year. And then the family would move there. So the dad threw himself off a bridge because the stock market crashed.
I mean,
right up until 12 years later, when he showed up again, sending the mum an apology letter. Like, how do you disappear for 12 years and not say a word?
I don't. That's a loaded question. That's hard. I think that in that time frame, it would have been easy to put it aside to say that he did commit suicide, because when the stock market crashed and all this stuff happened, yes, you have to think that a lot of people were like, what the fuck am I going to do? What if they had families? What are we going to do? This is not, there probably was a lot of suicide.
Yeah, there was.
I don't have that, confirmed, but like, I'm going to assume that. So, but to disappear for 12 years, if Stephen disappeared for 12 years and did not tell me, I don't even know what the fuck I would do. Like, okay, living in today, we know what we would do. We'd find their asses, probably.
Yeah.
Probably, but we ain't found Don Lewis. So anyway.
No, we didn't.
But back then, it would have been easy. I feel like it would have just, that was a norm. To me, I feel like it was easy to run away, because what was the wife going to do? What was she going to do?
Nothing at all. What I find so weird about this, though, is he sent an apology letter, which then meant Elizabeth knew that her dad was alive. So she then relocated and went to live with him in California. She
I
hasn't
would
seen
not.
him in 12 years. Like,
That's
how
weird.
does that happen? How does the mum let that happen?
Because things were different back then. I mean, like, as you know, even having, let's say, even our grandparents, even our grandparents, right? If you still have living grandparents, which I do still have some, it's like things were different then. And my
Yeah,
grandmother's in her 70s. So can you imagine in the 20s and 30s?
yeah,
Easy
yeah.
as fuck,
Fair
as I
point.
almost say.
In December 1942, not long after she turned 18, she joined her dad in California.
Yeah.
At this point, she hadn't seen him since she was 6. I just find it weird. I don't think it's a good idea for anyone involved, the dad, Elizabeth, or the mum. I think
Mm.
it's a bad decision to do this.
And we don't know the reason. That's the thing. No matter how much research you do, we did not talk to Elizabeth's mother. We do not know why she allowed her child to go live with the father who was estranged for 12 years. It could be monetary.
Yeah,
If you think about it, like, think about it. She could have, my assumption is that she let her go because that's one less mouth to feed in an economy that was not great, and the fact that she was probably barely making it to begin with.
yeah, yeah. In my opinion, I think this is the beginning of everything going wrong for
Yeah,
Elizabeth. Like
100%. Yes.
this was the start of what led to her death. She moved in with her father, and they would often argue, normally about her general behaviour and lack of agreeing with anything he wanted to do or what rules he set down. She'd kind of just done what she
Yeah.
wanted. And she moved out in January of 1943. She took a job at a
Mhm.
local military base and lived with a US Army Air Force sergeant who alleged to have abused her at the time when she was living in her home. Which again, like, that was something that happened at the time. It's horrible, but it was something that happened. Young girls would move in with older men and they would be, yeah,
I think
treated
that was the
badly.
norm. I hate to say it, but it kind of was the norm for because people were getting married at like 15, 16 years old then.
Yeah.
Now I know there was still the age of consent type stuff, right? But I don't really think that was as valid then. We weren't alive in the late 20s and 30s. I don't know, um, per state and everything, but I'm gonna say that was just the norm, like you said. It was like find a sugar daddy, so to speak, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, and that's she had daddy issues though. Come on, let's all say it. We all know.
Yeah. I'll give her a
Yeah,
due, though. She didn't hang around because she hung around until the summer of 1943
yeah,
and then she moved on and she went to Santa
yeah.
Barbara.
Hmm.
By September of that year, she'd been arrested for underage drinking and she was ordered back to Massachusetts. Um,
Yeah.
she didn't go. Instead, she went to live in Florida. And she'd make occasional visits up to her hometown, but
Hmm.
she didn't go home very often. Like, it wasn't a thing for her.
Yeah,
Which
but
again,
Florida to Boston that's pretty fucking far.
yeah,
Like, that's far.
anywhere in the States is far. Like, when I look at a map of the
Yes.
United States, like, the entirety of the United Kingdom would be like a town in Texas.
That's so crazy because yeah, like for me where I'm at, anywhere in I'm not that far from Texas technically, so all the whole y'all call me Texas or Twilight, whatever. So it's not like I guess it's entirely untrue, but anyways, it is far, and that's why we have to take planes if you want to get somewhere in a timely manner. Because I ain't driving for 14 hours to no fucking place.
No, which it's good that you mentioned planes because that's very apt for what we're about to talk about now. We're about to talk about the unluckiest man in history twice.
Mhm.
Um, so when she was in Florida, she met Major Matthew Michael Gordon Jr., who was a highly decorated Army Air Force captain. He was training for deployment to Asia for World War II efforts. He
Yeah.
was also recovering from a plane crash that he had in India. Now, around this time, he allegedly proposed and she accepted. Now,
Mhm.
he would die shortly after this on the 10th of August 1945 in a
Yeah.
second plane crash. This guy had 2 plane crashes in the space of a year.
That's just this is the thing. When I hear about people surviving a plane crash, which you don't luckily, we don't hear a ton, or at least not here, okay? Other than if you have a private plane and your goofy ass is flying that thing, you're going to probably die. Let's just go ahead and write it down now that if you own a private jet of some sort, you need to have a will because that is how you're going to die.
Yeah.
Okay. So now commercially, you don't hear about that very often. It has to be some crazy shit. And I always think, how the fuck do these people how can anybody like survive?
But to survive one and then die another one,
and
like
then die
8
in the
months
second
later.
one.
Like when that plane was going down the
weird.
second time, he must have been like, "Fuck, not again! Seriously, not
Can you
again!"
imagine, like, this is why I'm so scared. Like, I'm not really so scared to fly, but like, I haven't flown in years, just because I've had a baby and everything else. But I'm still scared, low key. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it doesn't matter if it's like, I know like commercial airlines are fucking safer than driving in a car, but I'm still scared.
Yeah.
I'm scared as fuck. I gotta get drunk. I mean, dead drunk.
Well, I say every single time we go to an airport, my phrase every single time is, if I was meant to fly, I would have been born with wings, and I wasn't.
No, but you can get those cocktails and get up there to heaven quicker.
Yeah, that works.
There you go.
Fun fact, Elizabeth's sister, Dorothea, also served in World War II. She was a linguist specialist, and she was involved with decoding Japanese messages, which it's irrelevant to the case. I just thought it was really cool. What a cool job.
I mean, that is pretty cool because, like, I wouldn't know how to fucking do that. I don't even know what really that is, to be honest with you. I mean, like, I'd be like, okay.
She was basically a spy. She decoded secret messages and told the Americans what they meant. Yeah, really cool. Less than a year later, in 1946, the war was over, and Elizabeth relocated, this time to LA. And she moved in with an old friend that she had when she was at the Air Force Base in Florida.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to say anything negative necessarily about Elizabeth, but I think it would be fair to say she was a party girl. She drank a lot. She attended lots of evening events, and looking at her history of dating, she fell in love quickly and fell out of love quickly as well.
I think that was just maybe there was a little bit of promiscuity. Like, and if you're single and you want to mingle, like, what can you really say at that time frame? That would have been more taboo because it would have been like slut shaming, so to speak.
I think at the time, I don't want to say anything bad about her, but there are character traits that she has that cannot go ignored, because if we do, like when we talk about stuff later, it's a lot harder to.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know.
She only spent 6 months of her life in LA. She worked as a waitress, and she was claimed to be an aspiring actress. Now, despite what you may have seen in movies depicting it, there is no evidence she ever auditioned for anything. Not a movie, not a TV show,
No,
not
she
a stage
didn't.
show.
I think a ton of people think that, though, Scott. I think that that gets like misconstrued because I think when people hear the story or they hear Black Dahlia's name, they're like, "Oh yeah, she was gonna be in the movie." No, she wasn't. She didn't even get that. No, she didn't even get to that point yet.
No, and I think a lot of this is just people's assumption at the time. Because if you were a pretty girl in Hollywood around this time, everyone in Hollywood would assume you are there to become an actor or an actress.
Well, that was, and it is the stereotypical thing. Like, if you were, that would have made sense to safely assume that, to say, "Oh, you're this girl, this whatever, come to Hollywood."
Yeah, and I'm not saying
that's probably true for most of them.
Yeah, and I'm not saying she wasn't there to become an actress, but there's no actual evidence that says she was.
No. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, that's what I wanted to clear up for everybody who doesn't know a lot about the case or hasn't read about it. There is nothing about her auditioning or anything.
No, and I looked everywhere to find something.
It's not. She had just slid into Hollywood. Like, literally, she was there partying, doing whatever she wanted to do, and she didn't never get to that point of being like where you would audition and do things like that because her life was cut short. So there you go.
Yeah. This case is a real example of that escalated quickly. Like, this goes from like she was in Hollywood, she was having a great time, and then on the 9th of January 1947, she returned home to her home in LA. She'd been on a short trip with her boyfriend at the time, Robert Manley.
Yeah.
Now, he's not a great dude. I'm going to say that now. He was a married guy, and he's a bit of a scumbag.
Most of them were married. I'm just going to say that. That was a thing. That was like normal too. Like, it just was.
It's not cool.
No.
He dropped her off at the Baltimore Hotel, which is located in downtown LA. Now, he didn't go in as Elizabeth said that she was going to meet her sister who was visiting from Boston that afternoon.
Yeah.
Now, there are a few sightings of her after this, but they're all unconfirmed. So she was spotted in the lobby of the hotel using a telephone not long after being dropped off. And then she was also spotted in a local bar called the Crown Cocktail Lounge, but no one can remember her leaving. Now, one of these sightings is the last time she was seen alive.
Yeah.
Which is mind-boggling. She's 22. She's just been dropped off from her lover, and she's gone and made a phone call, gone and had a drink. She's having a great night, and then it's over.
It's because she went with someone undisclosed and was somewhere where you couldn't see.
Yeah.
That's why that's the last place that she was seen. If you ask me, that makes sense in my mind, because it's like you're having a drink. She met, you know who she met. And that was her. What do they call that? I don't want to sound rude, but like they're Johns. There's something like that. Like they basically go. So like she met someone and he was of higher prestige than her. So maybe that was a foot in the door.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a like, hey, if you do this, like I can introduce you to so and so because of the level of superiority compared to her.
Yeah.
That's why she was only seen the last time in the bar, because if she went into a room with someone, nobody else is going to see her, Scott. Nobody's going to know that she's been gone.
Yeah. I think we've both got good ideas of who could potentially have done this.
100%.
On the morning of January 15th, Elizabeth's body was discovered by a mother taking her baby for a walk. She was on a vacant lot between Coliseum Street and West 39th Avenue.
Yeah.
Now, this is hard to listen to if you are easily squeamish. One, why are you listening to a true crime podcast? But two, tread carefully from here on out.
Yes.
Her body was severed at the waist, completely drained of all blood. Her face had been slashed ear to ear in what is known as a Glasgow smile. She had several cuts on her thighs and her breast. Several sections of flesh were sliced away completely.
Yep.
Her lower half was positioned a couple of feet away, with her upper half away from her upper half. Her intestines were tucked underneath her buttocks, and the body had been posed, arms above the head with elbows slightly bent, and her legs spread apart. The photos taken at the scene were so shocking that before they were published, the Los Angeles Herald had their in-house artist draw a blanket over the images, which is the thing you saw in the montage at the beginning.
Yeah.
I viewed the photographs. I'm sure you did as well.
Oh, I already have seen them a million times, but I went and looked back again. They're very gruesome. Now, gore does not affect me like that, you guys. So it's not that I don't care, but it was hard to look at her because she's vulnerable. She's completely naked. I mean, everything is showing. There's no privacy. It's literally everything. And that right there is what makes it so hard to look at, because knowing how just embarrassed, it's that embarrassment where you're like, how dare somebody leave her like that? So stark naked. And in the position she was in, like you said, like this, and the smile, that it's disturbing.
Yeah, the images genuinely shocked me. So I knew nothing about the
Yeah.
Black Dahlia before we started
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
this. And when I was like, oh, there's crime scene photos, I was expecting some photographs of like a body covered up on a gurney, and I was not
No,
prepared for what I got. Um,
this shows everything.
yeah, the coroner who attended the scene believed that Elizabeth died sometime between the evening of the 14th and the early hours of
Mhm.
the 15th, which he confirmed in his autopsy report, which we're going to share a little bit of it because it goes into a little bit more
Yeah.
detail of her and her injuries.
Yeah.
So the guy who done the autopsy was Frederick Newbar. He was the Los Angeles coroner. Um, his autopsy report stated that she was 5'5". She weighed 115 pounds. She had light blue eyes, brown hair, and badly decayed teeth. There were ligature marks on her ankles, wrists, and neck, which means she was bound and tied for a period of
Yes.
time.
Mm-hmm.
There was an irregular laceration with superficial tissue loss on her right breast.
Mm-hmm.
He also noted superficial lacerations on the right forearm, upper arm, and lower left side of the chest, which would indicate signs of a struggle. So she fought back.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
The body had been cut completely in half with a technique taught in the 1930s called a hemocorporaturum. I think that's how I pronounce it.
I didn't look up the word, but I feel like that's close enough, you guys. It's a lot. It's weird. I tried to say it, and I didn't want to say it wrong on the show, but I was like, it's a medical thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very long word.
It's very
Basically,
long.
what this
Yeah.
meant is she'd been
Yes.
cut in half, but they'd done this in a surgical way. So they'd cut between the second and third vertebrae,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then
It was
severed
very
the
clean.
very clean.
Yes.
Newbar's report noted very little bruising along the incision line, meaning it was done post-mortem. So this happened
Yep.
after she had died. Another gaping laceration measuring 4.5 inches run across her lady parts, I think is the
Yeah.
nicest way I can put it.
Yep.
Now, I wanted to give people an understanding of the Chelsea smile that she received, which is where they cut from the inside of your mouth up to just underneath your ears.
Yeah. Right up. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. 3.5 inches on one side, 2.5 on the other. That is horrific.
It's like the Joker, if relevant now, if you want to compare it to something. Back then, that wouldn't have been a comparison. But we'll get into more of that later on when I talk about my other stuff. But it's like I'm not 100% sure why that was done specifically. If it was just to add to the macabre to make her look like she was smiling almost, because I mean, it's like a force. I don't know. That shit is creepier to me than the queen cut in half, to be honest.
Yeah,
That
it's really.
This is what scares me.
Yeah, it's the most horrible thing ever to look at.
Yes.
Her skull was not fractured, but there was bruising noted on the front side of her scalp. Also, a small amount of a subcranial bleed, consistent with blows to the head.
Yeah.
The cause of death, believe it or not, was not the stabbing or the cutting in half. It was basically that she died of shock because of what was being done to her. It was the shock of the blows to the head and the face that basically ended her life. Newbar noted that Short's anal cavity was dilated by 1 3/4 inches, suggesting that she may have been raped. Samples were taken from her body for the presence of sperm, but the results came back negative.
And also we have to think about this too. Back then, the technology was not sound in mind. It wasn't sound for. I feel
anything.
like it was just so floppy. It was so floppy. Yeah, DNA was not. Y'all can forget about that. Like I don't think that was even back then in 47. No. So therefore, I just feel like what if the perpetrator used protection, a condom? Let's say that he used a condom, okay? We all don't have to be talked about. We all don't need to be told how a condom works. But if he did, there would probably be no trace of semen found in or around her body because that would be retracted act.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. So there you go.
Like, my takeaway from this is, like, this girl suffered, and this was not quick. She was bound.
Raped and she was beaten. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after she was raped and beaten and died of her injuries, they then cut 3.5-inch gaps down the sides of her mouth and then cut her in half before dumping her body in a public place and
That's
spending
the
the
craziest
time
part to me.
Yeah, and posing the body as well. Like, this isn't a crime this isn't an accidental crime. This is premeditated, and this is personal. You don't kill someone like this unless it's very, very, this is very personal.
Yeah, you don't hear about other serial killers. If you think about it, all the shit we've done and all the serial killer cases we've covered, how many of them are like, oh, they cut them in half?
No.
I know Ted Bundy did some awful shit. He did behead women. He did stuff like that. And that's fucking awful. But it's like, this was almost for, if I have to make an educated assumption, because this is my opinion, and we don't know for sure. This was for show. This was for fame. This was for the person that committed this act. This was to go down in history because this person knew this would be talked about for the end of time. Yeah. That's why she was cut in half.
Yeah. It's just such a horrendous crime.
It is. It's sad.
Now, taking into account that this happened in the 1940s, and we've spoken about how slow old school policing was, she was identified really quick. So her fingerprints were sent to the FBI, who got an almost instant match from when she was arrested for underage drinking in 1943.
Yeah.
Now, as soon as her identity was revealed, like, reports leaked everywhere. And how the reporters done this is absolutely disgusting. So it was actually the reporters that sent the fingerprints to the FBI. It wasn't the police.
Yeah.
And when they got the identity confirmed, because it was confirmed back to them at the same time as the police, they contacted her mother. And they initially told her that Elizabeth had won a beauty pageant and they wanted to get a bit of backstory about her.
Yeah.
And it was only because the mum pressured quite a bit, going, no, it doesn't sound like her. That's not the sort of thing she'd do, that they gave up the information that she had been killed. Now, what they then done is they said, look, we'll pay for you to come to LA. We'll pay for all the time you're here, and you'll be able to help the police investigation basically on our dime. We'll do it for you because we know it's a very expensive thing. Yeah. Instead, they kept her away from the police and interviewed her themselves and published numerous articles without the police involved. And this completely sensationalized this case because the press were further ahead with the case than the police were. And the police were finding out what was going on as they were picking up their morning papers.
I think that this was done, though, Scott, because at this time in 1947, I would say, but don't come at me if I'm wrong, because I can't remember everything. But this was a case that would have been so out there that they were just eating up the press. They were eating up the publicity. They were eating up everything, eating up every detail. So therefore, this was such a big thing that they were going to take advantage of it, so to speak. So it's like, let's get popularity. Let's get the fame off of it. Did they know every detail? No, they didn't, because they're just the press. They don't really know. They were probably first on scene, but the thing is that probably not. From what I can recall, other than like old shit, Jack the Ripper, which we ain't got time for that shit. Fuck him. But like stuff like that. But I'm talking about in the like 1940s or whatever. I would say that this was such a big case that like they hadn't seen anything like that.
No.
If anything, not in a long time. So this was like such a bizarre case that it was like, we're going to eat this up. Like we're going to take everything. And what they did was not right because they're not the police.
It wasn't right. And they took it one step further. So in the 1940s, men were the best thing ever and women were the villains. That's how it was. And that is how the press published this. This was the public perception. Men were...
I know.
And the press run with it. So the press used headlines like the adventures of the woman who prowled Hollywood Boulevard and sex fiends slaying. And they also latched on to how she was dressed in a black tailored suit, and they named her the Black Dahlia, which was a
because of
play
her
on the
black,
movie.
the blue
Yeah, and it
dog.
was a
Yeah,
as a play on the Blue Dahlia, which was popular at the
yeah,
time. Nothing to do with the
yes.
flower, which I thought. I thought it was to do with the
No,
Black Dahlia flower.
we'll talk about that, but like, no, it doesn't have anything to do with that. But yeah, it's because she just was notably always dressed in black, and then they took some inspiration from this movie that I've never seen, The Blue Dahlia, so I don't know much about the movie. But I was just like, all homegirl wanted to do was get in. She wanted to get in. Leave her
Yeah.
alone. Come on now.
We're going to talk. Heather's getting worked up.
It
Heather's
pisses
getting
me
worked
off
up.
because no, it pisses me off because it's like if it were a man, it would be like, oh my god, and then it's just like a woman who is sex positive, and even if she was, I want to say this in the nicest way. I'm just going to say promiscuous, okay? Even if she was, so it's none of y'all's fucking business. Like, who cares if she wanted to bang everybody in Bangkok, okay? Who cares?
But
I
in
get it. It's a different
1947,
time.
1947. Like,
I
if
need my
this
pearls busted.
exactly that. We're
Stupid.
going to talk about the investigation into this case, because the investigation for this case is
It's
actually
too much.
better than most. But before we do that, we are going to take a very quick break.
There's nothing better than hanging out with your best friends chatting horror movies. At Voices from the Mausoleum, we have programming that covers everything from found footage to gaming, interviews, and even the first horror morning talk show. Come join us. We're all friends at the Mausoleum.
So make sure you go and check out Voices from the Mausoleum and all of the
Yes.
other members of the network. YouRunPodcast.com. As soon as you get there, every single show is there. All of ours, all of theirs,
Yes.
and our shop. Did I mention our shop where you can get a t-shirt with Heather on it? Did I mention that? You can also get, if you like horror movie stuff and you want a really obscure shirt, you can get this one.
I remember that. I fucking hate that movie with a passion that is beyond Jesus and everything. I get it. It's funny. I would still wear the shirt, but like those movies, I just don't get it. They made 100 of them. I don't understand.
We said at the start of this episode we are in possession of the FBI file on the Black Dahlia. As we go through, we're going to share some segments of this file. You can obtain a full copy of the Black Dahlia FBI file by contacting them through their website. We haven't got it in an underhanded way. You just need to ask them very nicely. It's public information. They will send you a copy.
It is, but it's a mess though, Scott. So I don't know if you guys really.
Yeah, if you want to give a read through, you can. But we've kind of picked out all the bits that are actually worth reading out of the 300-page document.
And it doesn't seem like it's in order. That's the thing. I'm going through it and I'm like, I'm trying my best. And I don't think I have ADHD or anything. I mean, unless somebody gave it to me. That sounds horrible, but I blame other people. But I'm like, I cannot focus on this. Like I'm like, wait a minute. No, there's a reason why this case was not solved correctly, or basically could not be solved. Did y'all wait till y'all see the notes?
Yeah, like when you read through the case notes, like things aren't in date order; they're in the order that the guy shuffled it and put them away. And like
he was like, "Girl, get out of here! Get out of here!"
No. There were a few suspects that arose immediately. Robert Manley, her boyfriend, was top of the list.
Yeah, but
there was also Norman Chandler, who worked with notorious gangster Bugsy Siegel. He was too a suspect, and Bugsy Siegel's a suspect too. There was also Dr. George Hodel, and several members of the United States military were also implicated. We're going to start with the members of the military because these are kind of the easiest to.
Yeah, to read about. They didn't do it, y'all, so we're gonna go through it.
Yeah, the lead investigator did have issues obtaining the whereabouts of the people within the armed forces. Yeah. So there was laws around Social Security at the time, being it just post-war, that during the war, no law enforcement could get information on any social security details of anyone in the armed forces, because it was like, fuck no, they're doing their thing. You don't need to know where they are. You don't need to know who their family are. And then when it was all over, there was a new law that came in that basically allowed that freedom of information again. Now, when the investigators tried to get the information out of the government went, nope.
I mean, they like that now. Nope. They all up in your fucking beeswax, but then like you don't know anything.
So what happened is there was John Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI, later president of the United States of America.
Yes, that's insane. I guess I just didn't pick up on that tidbit. So kudos to you because.
Yeah. He sent a memo to his FBI agent, which is this. The instant request for Social Security, basically he sent a memo basically going, tell them to do it. Basically, the law has changed. Like, you need to do it. And anyone who's watching can read this themselves. It's up on the screen now. He basically is like, and then he's put at the bottom, let me know. Like, if there's any problems, let me know and I'll deal with it. Like, this to me is so wild. Seeing like actual documents with handwritten notes on it from John Edgar Hoover's like, wow. Like to have him involved, like, you forget he was the head of the FBI. So how many cases has he had his hand in the 40s?
Probably all the ones that are that are unsolved, like this one, if I had to guess.
It's very true.
Don't buy their vacuum cleaners. I'm just letting you know they don't suck well.
To reinforce what I said earlier about Elizabeth Short being promiscuous.
Yes.
There were 5 members of the armed forces as potential suspects, which she'd allegedly had relations with in the last 18 months.
He served her country, Scott. Leave her alone.
Yeah, well, when she ended one relationship, she went straight into another. So she was a bouncer. She bounced from one to the other.
Yeah.
Let's start with Robert Manley. It's always the spouse or the partner. Let's put it, times out of 10.
It is.
At 10 a.m. on the 19th of January, 2 LAPD sergeants, J.W. Wass and Sam Flowers, stalked the home of Red's employer. When he pulled up, they approached him with guns drawn, and the press were there at the same time, like ready to capture this wonderful moment on camera. Now, the next day, Aggie Underwood of the Examiner interviewed him, not the police. He was interviewed by the press, and he no encouragement whatsoever to basically go, this wasn't me. He basically said that he picked her up, took a short trip to San Diego. He dropped her off. In his words, they spent an erotically uneventful night in a motel.
Okay. I mean, they probably did. They banged it out, and it was time for him to bang on.
Yeah. He dropped her off at the Baltimore Hotel on the 9th of January. He finished his tale with a heartwarming statement, "I'll never pick up another dame as long as I live."
Yeah.
What?
So sweet.
Yeah.
So sweet.
Now, the reporter believed that Red was innocent. Like, she believed every word he said, just ate it up. And
I 100%. It's not him. It's not him.
The thing is, she basically published that he had goofy ideas of what fidelity was, of marriage was, and then she interviewed his wife, and then she done a spread about how his wife's standing by him. And I'm going to show you some of the pictures of his wife standing by him. And I want you to tell me if the look in her eyes is love or the look in her eyes is, when I get you home, you're in so much trouble. You tell me.
That middle one is sort of like, that's how I talk to my kids if they're bad. But then that last one, it looks a little fake. The farthest, the one to the right, looks a little fake, almost like it's like, I do a fake smile great, better than anybody, because they're like, ready? And I'm like, instantly. But infidelity is not really a big part of this case, but infidelity was a huge thing then. It just, have you ever seen Mad Men? The TV show? Yeah. So, like, come on. It's just one of those things, okay? Women had basically no rights. Women didn't even get credit cards. This is not on subject, but women did not even get access to credit cards until like the late 70s-ish.
Yeah.
So, y'all, this dude was just giving him some from this lady. He did not do it. That wasn't even her boyfriend. I wouldn't even consider that her real boyfriend. That was like maybe one that she stayed with longer. No.
Now, incredibly, the FBI files do not mention Robert Manley at all. And if I'm honest, what is contained in the FBI files would lead me to believe they were looking for a military conviction. Like, everything in there is very much one narrative, trying to get the details of the soldiers so they can interview the soldiers. That was all it was. There's letters in there from J. Edgar Hoover basically applying pressure to other federal departments, basically threatening the armed forces with the Social Security Act and court if they don't give him what he wants. Now, I'm not one to dismiss law enforcement's work because they all do a great job. They work really, really hard. But the FBI's had fuck all. Like, this case file that they sent me is unhelpful. It has no real substance. It's got no investigation. It is just absolute crap. Like, it's the worst file ever.
It's just too much. This is the thing. Because we're not there, we don't know the actual, like, what order it should be in. And whoever put this in was literally like, I'm just going to put in random shit, like a 5-year-old. And you go to read it and you're super confused because you're like, I mean, it's cool that we have access to it. That's fine. But it, like, doesn't make any actual sense.
No, it really doesn't. And it got under my skin. So I went and dug deeper and went and obtained copies of the LAPD investigation files, which are not as easy to locate. They were not just a can I have them, please? They were a lot more difficult to get. And we'll talk about them on the next episode. The actual investigation, not the swept under the carpet approach of the FBI, is much better. We'll also talk about some of the letters that were sent to the press, numerous confessions, and all of that's for next time, because we've still got plenty to fill this one. Dr. Hodel, Heather's number one suspect in the case, renowned physician, and didn't become a suspect until 1949. He was arrested and charged with incestual sexual abuse against his daughter. And it was a widely covered trial because he was a big doctor. Everyone knew who he was in LA. He was found innocent on all charges. Now, 2 witnesses were found to be unreliable, and the third retracted their statement, allegedly threatened by Hodel to back off.
Yeah, because they didn't want to be cut in half either.
Yeah. Now, it was around this time that the LAPD took interest in him. They were looking for people who were suspected sex offenders or potential sex offenders to link them to the Black Dahlia. And when they found out that his daughter had claimed that the dad had killed Elizabeth Short in a police interview leading up to the trial, this was kind of all they needed to go, oh, hold on. So you said he done it, and we think he done it. We're going to go and now find out if he done it.
I look like that Chick-fil-A girl where she's like, but literally, like, okay, we got to take a pause for a second, because I can just not fathom how they can think that it could even potentially be anybody else because of the fucking skill set of her being cut in half so clean. It makes no fucking sense to me. Do you think some random fucking soldier just cut? They don't train these military men to do this shit.
No.
They don't train some one night stand to do this shit. Come on, y'all. Like, I almost feel like they just didn't want to solve it because it's like, oh, we get to talk about it in 2024.
It honestly, it does. Like, when you read the LAPD file, I'll send you the LAPD file before we do the next one. It is very much like, we think it's him. but it might be this guy. Let's talk to this guy. It's that vibe to it.
It pisses me off. Anyways.
So they did find out that obviously he had the required skills to do this.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is also corroborated by 8 separate witnesses that he could do this. But not only that he could do this, that he had a relationship with Elizabeth Shaw of a sexual nature. Now, police were so convinced they actually bugged his home, and it was a sting operation instructed by the district attorney, which the FBI were not aware of at the time. And they bugged it with the idea to get a confession. The closest they got was a conversation he had with an unknown male. And he said exactly this: supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they can't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead.
Yeah.
They thought there was something fishy. Anyway, now they may have figured it out. Killed her. Maybe I did kill her. Maybe I killed my secretary.
I mean, he probably did. Let's be honest. This is just it. I cannot. Like, I need a time machine. Give me a DeLorean and push it back to 47, not to 88. Let's go back. Okay, not forward, whatever. Back to the future.
You'll have to take me, because in 47 you're not even allowed out on the street unless you're escorted.
That's right. I need your credit card, bitch. Anyways, like it pisses me off because I really do feel like this is sensationalized to be like, we just want to keep it going. We do know that he probably did it. Do you understand that there are people on death row and in prison right now that literally did not commit the crimes that they have been found guilty for, but they're going to fucking jail? But they didn't do it. They 100% didn't do it. Now, it's not everybody, but there are a handful of innocent people in the judicial system. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
A prime example is Joe Exotic.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And his stuff is like not even. Do you know how many times I say like, oh my God, I'm going to kill you? Yeah. Now you put me in jail yet. Come on now. This is bullshit.
Let's have a quick look at George Hodel for anyone who doesn't know what this doctor looks like. I'm going to say it now. He has a spectacular mustache.
He looks like a pedophile. Like,
he does.
I mean, he kind of was a pedophile. And it's uncanny when we get to the, well, I don't know if we're going to talk about it right now, so I'm not going to say anything, but like, it is kind of I say minus the mustache, but like, he just looks like a pervert.
Yeah.
And not a pervert, but a pervert, which is worse than a pervert.
Yeah. After his death, his son and former LAPD homicide detective investigated his father and concluded him to be the killer, publishing a book in 2003 called The Black Dahlia Avenger.
Yeah, Avenger, the true story.
Yeah. Now, I find this super interesting, but I don't think there's enough substance in what he found. There's a couple of photographs of the two of them together. There's Elizabeth mum says it's not her in the photograph. She's convinced it's not her daughter. Like, there's lots in here that it could be him. And no hate to you, Heather, but this isn't my guy. I know this is your guy, but he's not my guy.
No, this is my guy 100%. Well, we have to talk about your guy because, like, unless he's skilled in being able to do that, like, who else did this? It wasn't a two-parter. If you ask me, it was not two people that did this to her. This was a sex act thing gone wrong. So in my mind, I look at it like she had relations with this person and things got out of hand, things got out of whack. They kind of like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then there was sodomy and rape and just horrible things done to her that she did not want done to her. And guess what happens sometimes in those situations? As a true crime person, people panic and they may kill someone because they're like, oh my God, she's going to go to the police and report me because I raped her. Yeah. And guess what? This got out of hand. And so was it premeditated? It could have been, Scott. It could have been. But I think it was a little bit of both, which kind of doesn't make sense because it was like he premeditated the sexual stuff with her. I'm not 100% sure if I think that he literally was like, I'm going to do this exact, like, kill her. But I think when it happened, and it was like, let's go with it. I'm going to cut her in half. We're going to put the,
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
he Hodel is 100% up there as a prime suspect. Let's talk about a wacky one before we dig into my one.
Okay.
So let's talk about the unexpected pair that is Bugsy Siegel and Norman Chandler. Now, there are a number of relationships and sexual encounters that we know Elizabeth had,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
not normal for girls of the time. This
Yeah.
was not the norm for most
No.
girls,
No.
which plays into the theory that perhaps she was a cool girl to make ends meet, which would also explain how she can afford to rent
Possibly.
rooms in a hotel as opposed to a waitress's salary. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but this is just a possibility.
It's just the way it was. It's just what it was.
Yeah. So the theory is that gangster Bugsy Siegel killed Elizabeth on the request of Norman Chandler. So Norman Chandler was a publisher for the LA Times. This is him here. He's a rather dapper gentleman with a terrible tie. Now, hear me out, because this is just as crazy as like the Hodel scenario. So let's assume that Elizabeth was a cool girl for a minute. Now, if she was working for Bugsy, which is who she would have been working for, he ran all of the crime and all of the prostitution in LA from the mid 1930s through to the late 1940s, early 1950s. When he moved everything to LA. So around this time, he was in the process of moving all of his crime businesses into legitimate businesses in casinos in Las Vegas. So he was in the process of shutting stuff down and moving stuff over. Now, to do this, he needed good press and he needed people in high places of power to make this easy for him. So Elizabeth sleeps with Norman and she falls pregnant. Now, Norman, who's married and a public figure, doesn't want to be exposed. So he goes to Bugsy and tells Bugsy his problem, who is more than happy to help him out because he's then got a publisher in his pocket forever. Now, there's no evidence in this at all. There's no first-hand account. Like, the only thing we've got is there is an account from a mob member, a current mob member, who remembers another mob member who was his uncle, called Uncle Vern, who basically told him that Bugsy was involved. So this is really wafer thin, but there's something to it. And anyone who's not seen Bugsy Siegel, he is the stereotypical gangster.
Yeah.
Like that.
Like legit. Like 10 out of 10 would do, probably.
Yeah, like he definitely would commit this crime, but this is where it falls down. He does not have the skill set to commit this crime.
He doesn't. I don't even like. Okay, it's, you know what it is. That sounds all fun and entertaining. It sounds like a fucking children's story of adventure. It sounds like a great Hollywood movie. It sounds great. Like, let's blame it on some mafia people, some gangsters. He didn't do it.
No,
he got time for that shit. He doing other shit. He got time to kill her. She was not anyone.
No, and I'm with you on that. I agree, but I put it in there because I thought it was really interesting that this was kind of all happening around the same time.
It's all insane, but yeah.
There are a lot more suspects that have come up in this, and we're not going to get through them all on this episode, so we've saved some for next time. But there's one I want to discuss before we kind of wrap up this final part, and that's my guy. So my number one suspect is Dr. Walter Bailey. So Walter Bailey was a skilled surgeon who is linked to the Black Dahlia in 1996 when the Washington Post reinvestigated the case. So Walter's daughters was friends with Elizabeth's sister, who often visited LA. They lived in LA. So it's not a big leap in thought to think that the daughter would also know Elizabeth, and therefore the dad would also be aware who Elizabeth Short was. Now, the doctor lived less than a mile from the Baltimore hotel where Elizabeth lived. Her body was dumped less than a block from his ex-wife's house, who he had recently divorced. He also matched the FBI profile at the time: desensitized to blood, comfortable with a knife, intimate knowledge of the area, and prone to outbreaks of rage. So let's say he did cross paths with Elizabeth. He met her in the bar. They went and spent a couple of days together, and he snapped. Now, why would he snap? Because he's got a
Why would he
documented.
snap?
So he's got a documented trigger. So Elizabeth would sometimes speak of a son that she'd lost. She'd lost a son when he was very young, and she would do this as a way to get free drinks or free meals or somewhere to stay or whatever it was. It was a bleeding heart story that people would like, oh, you poor thing, let me get you a drink. It was that kind of, that's how she would use it to get things that she needed. Now, if she used this with Walter, he would snap because he lost a son at a young age. And if he realized it was a lie, this is something he had previous record for, attacking someone who said they'd lost a child when they hadn't. And he just lost his wife as well. Now, what seals the deal for me is her body was discovered 48 hours after the anniversary of his son's death, and could potentially have been killed on the same day that his son died.
Stop. Stop trying to make me change my mind. I still, in my heart, or hearts with an S, I still feel like it was Hodel that did it. But it's because I have other stuff. We're going to discuss it in part 2, though, you guys, because we're going to leave you hanging because we want you to come back and listen. And I have a lot of information and juicier details of like Hodel's family and why. But damn it, Scott, you're pissing me off.
Like when I stumbled across this guy, I was like, there's a lot there that kind of makes that tick boxes for me.
I purposely avoided doing any extra research because I'm like, fuck Scott. Like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not a true crime aficionado. Like I think I said that wrong. But anyways, I was like, no, it's Hodel all the way. 100% believe me, Scott. But now I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of these two. However, there is another pair of suspects we'll talk about on the next episode.
Yeah, but we already know that if anything, I will stretch out what I said. If anything, Hodel is going to be my number one, but we'll put this other guy because it has to be one of the two. It can't be anybody else.
I think so. And we'll also talk about the LAPD investigation because they done a much better job. They actually went and interviewed people as opposed to the FBI just argued with the press and other law enforcement agencies for 386 pages that I read.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I can't believe you read through all that. I could not. Like, I really felt like Leonardo DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Like, I was like, I could not. I was like, after about 10 or 15 pages, I was like, my brain hurts. How is Scott doing this?
Yeah, the worst ones are where they were handwritten, and I had to zoom them out so like the letters were all like fist size to read them.
Look, in part 2, let's pull up a few of them and show our people because I was literally like, what the fuck is this saying?
Yeah, terrible. So that's it for this episode. To recap on what I said earlier, next time LAPD investigation. Another couple of suspects, lots of other bits from Heather. We're also going to talk about American Horror Story for a little bit.
Yes, we're going to talk about that because I have a whole bit and I need to express that. And I need to express my information that I have on Hodel because he did it. I don't know. Like, I wasn't there, but like, did he do it? I think so. I just feel like he did. It just seems natural. Like, it feels like he did it.
We're also going to piece together what maybe happened in that time window between her disappearing and her being found. We're also going to look at the letters that were sent to the press, one of which contained personal effects, including her birth certificate and where that may have came from. And I'm going to throw something really interested into the mix. I'm going to give you a murder location because I think I've found it. If my guy is the guy, I think I know where she died. I think I have the location.
I think that you're just trying to make me do more work. You're like that mean science teacher that's like, this isn't good enough, do more work. And I'm like, but like I'm doing a lot of this just based off the top of my head from watching documentaries. Like I don't recommend the movies.
The thing is, there, Heather, like your true crime knowledge is so good. So whenever we get a case that I know I tend to find myself
it's in my brain.
I'm like with a case like with this one, you're like, oh, I know the Black Dahlia. I'm like, I am going to dig so deep, so at least my knowledge level is like around about where it needs to be. And then when I dig, I find stuff and I go, oh, that's interesting. Where does that take me?
Yeah, and this is the thing with me. Like Scott always does the most, like all the time. He's like, if it wasn't for you, the show wouldn't even be on the air right now. But the thing is like a lot of this is just lives rent free in my mind, and I'm like, oh, I already know all of this. Do I have to research? Yeah, I got to go back and look at stuff. But you go so much further because you're like, wait a minute, I get it. You don't know on the surface level most of the stuff, and to you, you're like, who's the Black Dahlia? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
I don't.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah, and because I've never watched it, because I'm not into true crime, but I've never sat and watched all these documentaries. So like, we get like the Black Dahlia, and I go to the internet. Who is the Black Dahlia? And the Black Dahlia will then they'll tell me who that is, and I'm like, who could have killed the Black Dahlia? And then I'll get like a list of names, and I basically do. Yeah, I do the same work that they do when they put documentaries together, and I kind of pick what I think, but I've got no knowledge what the rest of the world have discussed on this. So like everything we're talking about now, other people may have said 1,000 times. They may not. I don't know.
I mean, I didn't listen to any other podcasts prior to doing any type of investigation because I just don't want to. And honestly, the one documentary on it with George's son, Steve, it's a good one to watch. I think it might have been a Cold Case Files or something, but anyhow, because it's like hard to find. You can't really like find the documentary per se. It was like just on TV. And so I don't recommend watching the movies because the movies are they're just dramatization, you guys. If you watch the movie and if you watch the first season of American Horror Story, which we'll get into next episode, it's all for fun. It's fabricated. It's not exactly true. So don't watch it and say, oh, well, you said this and that. Bitch, don't come at me. Because no, I didn't. Like, no, I'm just saying, like, it's all dramatization, okay? So don't get too excited.
Don't think you found footage of her auditioning because it's not. It looks like her, but it's not.
Especially in American Horror Story, for you guys that love that series, I love the whole show. Especially when you watch that particular season with those episodes with the Black Dahlia, they're showcasing something, and they bring up the flower, and we'll talk about that next episode.
Yes. The Black Dahlia is currently an active cold case. It is unsolved. So maybe one of our theories has solved it. Maybe on the next episode, we're going to break more ground. Maybe when I finish reading the 1,800 pages of the LAPD file, I may find something else. But until then, Heather, take us away.
I'm going to take us away. Calgon, take me away. Anyways, you guys, we're so happy that you tuned in, that you're listening to us. Please stick around for part 2. We have a lot more juicy stuff to talk about. I'm going to go on a rant about American Horror Story. I'm going to basically do this to Scott for his suspect. But it's totally fine because that's what we do. But you guys, we love you and appreciate you. Please make sure to visit our site. Make sure you visit us on Instagram. And until next time, stay safe, stay spooky, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.